G'day and welcome to Media Tech Talk. I'm David Richards. In part one of our conversation with Kargo's Joe Lanzerotti and Cam Dinnie, we explored their groundbreaking partnership with OpenAI and what the arrival of advertising inside ChatGPT means for brands, publishers, and the future of digital advertising. In this episode, we shift our focus to the broader future of the industry, from connected TV and premium media to AI-powered creativity, sustainability, and why the next generation of advertising may look very different from the one we know today. We now pick up the conversation with Paul, asking how Kargo is helping advertisers engage audiences in the rapidly evolving world of connected TV.
Kargo entered the CTV space roughly three and a half years ago. Initially, it was just in pod video, pretty standard, similar to linear. But what's been exciting about CTV for us is the expansion of both connecting all of the major streaming platforms within the US. The last one that we're working on right now is Peacock, and then all of the other major ones are connected within our network, making sure we have access to the last vestige of appointment viewing, so sports and things like that. We have live sports, which has been our biggest CTV draw of the last few years. And then, especially with Olympics and now World Cup coming up, very excited about that. But the other thing that's exciting to me about CTV is I think we've started to find where the leaned in checkpoints are. CTV is can be passive, but it also can be active. So Kargo has tried to surround those active moments. When you turn the TV on, we have partnerships with certain manufacturers to make sure that we have ad space on that home screen. When you pause your content, we have pause ads as well. So we're making sure that we're connecting with people when they're interacting with the remote and we know they're in the room and they're doing something. But then we can also be splashy and have the video creatives and the QR codes and everything in pod as well throughout.
And it kind of takes me to the earlier point as well around there's so many different ways of engaging with audiences these days, so many different experiences. And it does kind of feel like we are entering a time where we'll move away from the concept of, standard formats. Yeah. In terms of your 720 by 90s and 300 by 250s, etc. And do you think, and a follow-up question after this, but do you think AI is kind of the thing that's going to allow us to bridge that gap and move away from standard formats safely without creating too much complexity in the ecosystem?
Yes, absolutely. I think AI is that missing piece because it's very, very, very important that we still keep human messaging and human creativity in the forefront. That has to happen first. The missing piece before was if humans create every single thing, that's a lot of time, that's a lot of effort, that's a lot of energy. So let's stick to a handful of formats that can scale and run as many places as possible. Now we kind of get to fill in the gaps a little bit. We can create those assets with humans, and then we can use AI to just slightly modify them to fit in different places and to kind of live in different surfaces in different areas without having to recreate the wheel 1,000 times, but still have humans in the loop and driving it. So I think you're spot on. That's the next step here.
Yeah. And I think, CTV, as I said, kind of is part of one of the big things driving, how audiences consume premium content. And, what opportunities, particularly around the different types of formats, different types of integrations that you can do as well from an advertising perspective, what opportunities does that create for brands who want to do deeper storytelling and stronger audience engagement?
Yeah, there's a few opportunities, I think. And one of them is with that piece of connecting storytelling. So Cam actually mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I'm going to build on it. CTV is the biggest screen in the house, so it is very sought after to get those big splashy brand messages on. However, it's difficult to maybe interact at the level that a mobile device is. So we've seen a lot of advertisers start to lean into these, I know the funnel has collapsed, they're saying, but these full funnel old school methods of let's start with a CTV kind of brand awareness, product introduction. Maybe we do have a QR code, maybe we get some engagement, which is great, but what we can do now as well is using the router and the IP address in the home, try to connect the dots a little bit and catch the same people who are in the house who might have seen that ad on their mobile devices or on their desktop devices as well, in a place that they might be a little bit more willing to spend time and engage and click through and do a little bit of shopping or browse and see what it's all about, especially if they've seen it in the household. So I do think we're finally starting to find ways to kind of bridge the gap between all these disparate different ways of, this one's for branding, this one's for lower funnel. It can all be the same thing in the Kargo ecosystem.
I love that. This must chew up a lot of energy for a company that's been around for 22 or so years. From what we were talking about before the show, sustainability reporting is something that Kargo prides itself on. Do you want to take us through a bit of that?
Yes, absolutely. When I joined Kargo 3 years ago, I had a really, really great mentor who challenged me and said, Kargo is the kind of company that you can leave a mark on it and you can find what you're passionate about here. So I told him sustainability is a passion of mine. And we were able to partner with a climate consultancy firm called Alpine Project, who has helped us for the last 3 years measure all of our greenhouse gas emissions. We follow ad net zero protocols, and we make sure that we're keeping up with industry standards. We're in the middle of posting our company goals through 2030 on the Science Based Targets Initiative, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit kind of a place that hosts goals for corporations. I think they have 13,000 plus right now, most of the Fortune 500. Kargo is listed in the directory. The goals should be live within the next 2 months or so, by the end of the summer, or I guess Chicago summer, your winter. The other thing that we do, though, is besides just measuring, that's the first step. You got to know where you stand. The next step is offsetting for us and reduction as much as possible. So we're doing reduction in some ways, like partnering with airlines who have their own goals and that we know are moving in the right direction. Travel's an inevitable part of our business. It's a people business, so that's not going to go away and we can't stop it. But we can work with more sustainable green companies that care about it. What we can't reduce, because we are a growing company and we do produce emissions, we do run on data servers and things, we offset. And we work with Climate Impact Partners, which is affiliated with United Nations. So we make sure that all of our offset projects are verified and legitimate. And then Kargo takes on that brunt and that cost and that workload to offset everything that we do every year to make sure that we're certified carbon neutral.
Yeah. Now, I hear that it's quite a process for you to remain at that standard. I mean, the amount of information that you've got to collect and how do you do it? Because you've got staff everywhere and you've got to track it and report on it. How do you do that?
Yes, you do. And it's my little side project. So it's an extra fun and complicated one, but it has everything. And we actually are starting to get, this is the third year we've done it. We're in the middle of verifying it right now. So we're getting faster. I was looking last year, I finished my report in September. It's May, so we're getting there. But it's everything from, we poll all of our employees every single year to figure out how many days they're in office and how far away their commute is and how they get to work. So everything from, taking a train to work 5 miles or 5 kilometers is very different than biking to work, which is basically no emissions. We have every energy bill of every office. We make sure that we communicate with Amazon Web Services, who host all of our servers. Every little bit, even the food orders, the furniture, the laptop replacements, all of it is tracked, all of the travel, all of the emissions there. And then we get it verified through a kind of a scientific community third-party company called Cameron Cole. That's not an advertising company. They just look at these reports, ask a lot of questions, have me redo it a couple times. And then when they're finally satisfied that to the best of our ability, we were able to estimate our impact on the environment, then we get that stamp of approval, and then we take that number of however many metric tons of carbon it was and do our best to offset it.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. It's a big project.
It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of receipts, a lot of tracking down receipts.
Cam, let's come back to you. Asia Pacific is one of the most diverse media regions in the world. What's been some of the biggest surprises or lessons in scaling Kargo across this region? It's a small question.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. It's one I've thought a lot about. Like I've worked in businesses with an APAC remit for probably about the last 10 years, and I think it's the obvious one, but there's this illusion of APAC being one market. So geographically we're close, but it's so disparate. There's probably really 15 or 20 unique and distinct markets across the region that all behave and act differently, and that can be down to the cultural nuance, it can be down to the level of sophistication around technology and how content is delivered, whether they're mobile first markets. So there's a lot of difference across the region that you need to account for. I think when I first started working across APAC, I spent 6 months talking to our Indian country manager, where every call was him saying to me, this is how it works in India. And slowly but surely I got the message that, how we do business in Australia or how we do business in the US does not translate to every market in APAC. There are some where it does more easily, like a Singapore, but then you get into the nuance of Indonesia or the Philippines, and it's different again. So I think my sort of learning of how we scale a business across APAC and do it meaningfully is you've got to lean in, and you've got to understand the nuance, and you've got to be very deliberate around the markets that you want to go into and when and how you go into them. And it's not that one size fits all. So I think that's the approach we've taken as Kargo. Is I started here 5 years ago, and we talked about us being an APAC business, but it was really Australia, New Zealand, and a little bit of Singapore. So it was not APAC in its true sense. Since then, we've expanded. We've got people on the ground in India, and we're more active across a number of Southeast Asian markets. But to do that, we've needed to go to those markets to listen, to understand both the people, the culture, and the technology available, and then make the right strategic steps so that we don't do everything in every market, if you will. So I guess that's a long way of me saying that, it's a really nuanced market. It's not APAC, it's 20 individual markets that need specific approaches for each of them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah. But it's like the exciting part of that is it's a really interesting market to work in. I spent a week in India 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it was full on, and it was hectic, and it was crazy, and it was not doing business in Australia, but it was energizing. The people there are passionate, and the rate of change there is incredible. I think seeing where they've moved over the last 10 years, they're learning, and they're learning quickly and catching up pretty dramatically.
Yeah, look, I think with my travels with work, going through Vietnam and Thailand, more specifically Vietnam, was just an interesting insight into media companies that we take for granted here in this country, probably more Western media companies, where we expect a high polished experience, Hollywood, if you like, and you go into these TV studios and they're very different. They've been around since the 60s and probably haven't really been updated. And this is absolutely meant to be no disrespect at all, but it just came across as a very hospitalized environment where lino tiles and just things haven't changed. It just I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just through the way people or the way advertisers are spending money, and the outlets that they're spending money on isn't the same way as focused here as it is here, I should say.
Yeah, potentially. I think it's interesting to see that difference in terms of where money is spent and how polished the product is. But I think the thing that comes through for me is the ambition and just that drive to get things done. I think often my experience over 25 years in media is we can get so caught up on wanting that finished, polished product, but not being willing to take the steps along the way to get there because, oh no, we want that, but we don't want to do all these intermediate steps. Whereas some of these Southeast Asian markets and in India, it's like, let's just start moving, let's get things done. And, it doesn't have to be the finished product, but that's how they make progress and make progress quickly.
Yep. And it's so important to understand that nuance as well, because the people who operate in those environments are very different. They're probably more business focused than they are creative focused. The way that we produce, as I said before, Hollywood style environments and content here, we have a different expectation in the way things operate. Yeah, sorry, Luckett.
Oh, well, good. I was just going to say, it's funny you say that because literally last night I was thinking about this exact same thing, but in a completely different context, around just my own personal experience working in corporate for 15 years where, there was a really large expectation on analysis before decision and before moving forwards. You almost need to get, do 90% of understand 90% of, not just what you're going to do, but what the outcome is projected to be, et cetera, before you can make a decision on anything. But in the entrepreneurial world, that's not how things really work most of the time. You make decisions and move on things and take action with much less of an understanding of what's about to happen. And to your point, it's almost needed in a way in order to make progress and really innovate.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'd draw it back to what Joe was talking about, Cargo as a business, and Harry, our founder and CEO, and him having that willingness to take some bets, like educated bets, but he's a guy that moves very quickly. And I think if you're going to go through that, you've just got to have clear success or failure criteria and make an active call on the way through. Is this worth pursuing? Does it need to adapt, or do we cut it? But I think having that fearlessness, if you will, to embark on something, but with criteria around what does success look like, is a way to move quickly.
Yeah, it's like, people are scared to make a $20 million bet, understandably so. But if you're instead making a couple of $1 million bets as a business, and ladder that up over time, you end up at that 20 million anyway, right? Just, you make smaller decisions faster, and you may get there quicker in the end.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so I guess looking future vision. So if we fast forward 5 years, what do you think will matter most in digital advertising that the industry isn't paying enough attention to today?
Yeah, I think we're kind of on the right topic here. I think it's the combination of, I'd say, iterative customization and testing, and then learning on a scale that we have not been able to achieve before. So it's those micro insights that previously might not have been worth placing a big bet on, but now both through like DCO and then Agentic platforms that will eventually start talking to each other, that's going to be the new advent of AI-powered advertising. Is once the media companies and the companies like Kargo with our Project Kara and the publishers and everybody kind of really connects, and we can remove as much friction as possible, we'll be able to move faster with more information and in more different ways. So it's not that we're not paying attention. I think a lot of people are paying attention to this, but it's where I see the next 5 years headed is personal, like hyper-personal customization of content and messaging, and down to the colors that they notice that people like, the most, and that you and I both might like the same sports team even, but even marketing it in one way towards me as a family experience and marketing it towards you as a day out with the lads is a very different way to go, and maybe they could start to do that too. So I think it's that hyper-personalization, the learning, and the building profiles that is exciting to me. Once we can remove the friction and once we can multiply the human effort with AI, I think it's going to be a really exciting space to be in.
Yeah. Joe, is AdCP, where is that in your space at the moment?
I'm not sure about where it's at in the US, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, just an interesting one we're tracking here. Obviously, there's a lot of agentic solutions coming through using that standard format or standardization, which is interesting. Anyway, we'll keep track on it. I'd love to get you boys back on again, actually, and talk to us more about how the OpenAI ChatGPT experience is progressing and some of the insights that you're seeing as a result of that, maybe a bit more of a case study.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating world.
Cam, you want to take this first?
Come on, Cam, don't be shy.
Yeah. I could really stitch myself up here, couldn't I?
Joe, I think he said 2 weeks away. Am I right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In the US, we have run, I think it was 10 campaigns so far in the beta. Very short, 2-week campaigns to see how things work. So I don't know if we're at case study level yet, but we're definitely moving in that direction quickly. That's one of the top asks we're getting is prove it works, which is fun because they just announced it 2 weeks ago. So
fantastic.
It's a learning curve. Right now, we're mostly looking to see how narrow can we target. First of all, like what does scale look like? What does delivery look like? What types of topics are trending most, and where should we maybe be leaning in? Which topics are leading to clicks and leading to action versus others? Some might make perfect sense, and there might be a million searches for food and recipes through ChatGPT, but maybe people don't care enough to click on a product or an ingredient ad below it. Maybe they do. We're not quite sure yet because we're just getting started, but I'm very, very excited and keen to see which industries and which verticals tend
Yeah.
to have the most interaction and results from that.
And before we start getting people right in, I just want to recap that obviously GPT is in control of the information that you're getting. You're not getting everything. So that would also include the keywords. So there'd be some areas that they wouldn't allow you to, or advertisers to advertise around, obviously around certain sensitive topics. So just to clarify that.
Yes, they have a very thorough list of topics not to touch, which is fair. Everything from the very obvious, dangerous topics that are always blocked to even some that might not be dangerous. But I think one good example is like finance and banking. They're not allowing anything in that space at the moment, and if they are, it's very close to the chest and very careful, and they're watching it because they don't want that situation of you're talking to ChatGPT about the difference in different types of mortgages or loans, and then an ad pops up and you get confused and think that's what it's telling you to do. So that's not something that's happening right now. They're sticking with consumer packaged goods, travel, entertainment, kind of very safe, broad topics to start. So that's where we're playing it.
Nice. Cool.
Well, I use ChatGPT to make sense of a lot of the brain dumps that I have. So I'm sure advertisers would love to get access to that information.
Your innermost thoughts.
Yeah, it's dangerous how much info is in there. I'm on the pro plan though, so I don't get ads.
Yes.
Before we close out, I just want to Cam, I want to hear your thoughts, your take on where you see the conversation in 5 years' time, and then I got one final question for both of you, which may be a bit late to be asking this question, but I'm keen to hear the answer. So yeah, Cam, where do you think the conversation is going to be in 5 years' time?
I think it's a good question, and I was thinking about how to answer this in preparation for this conversation. I think it's almost a little bit of what Joe said, but we're on the right track. Like I think we always overestimate where we're going to be in 5 years, but I think it's about, we've talked a lot about AI, but how do we leverage AI to reduce some of that friction and to allow us creatively and from an audience perspective to show up in a meaningful way where consumers are engaging. I think what we've seen, and we've just talked about ChatGPT, but we've seen where consumers engage to, it's changed over time and continues to change. It was broadcast, then it was digital, then it was CTV. Now we're talking about these surfaces like ChatGPT. So I think that evolution will continue, and I'll throw another buzzword being retail media into that mix. That that's another area that delivers on a new environment of engaged consumers with really strong data signals. So I think those combinations of it's about where are those users going, and I think we've got a pretty clear view on where they are now and that short to medium term view on where they're going in those sort of environments. But it's how do we leverage the technology and the AI and the automation to take advantage of those in a meaningful way, and I think that's where we'll see that development and that maturing of the offer in each of those spaces.
Yeah, great answer. And it kind of leads to the question I was going to ask, which was, as a company level philosophy, what is Kargo's position or policy or vision, whatever word you want to use, around AI in general and its use within the company?
Love this question. It has been such a hot topic. I genuinely do, because as you know, I was in Sydney fairly recently kind of talking about this topic a little bit. Kargo's position in the market right now is we still want to bring the best of what Kargo has to offer and what makes us different, and just lower the barrier of entry, make it easier and remove friction to get the good stuff that Kargo has to offer. So we have 22 years of creative insights. We know what works, and we know what formats and what types of copy and colors and placements and everything work really well. Instead of having to go through a direct deal and have human designers build every single aspect of it, it's nice to know that we can use AI to grade our homework a little bit. So within our Project Kara platform in the Creative Hub section, we can do creative optimizations where it suggests, based on the vertical, based on past campaigns that client has run, maybe you should try different versions with the call to action button that says shop now instead of buy now. A tiny little thing, but maybe that will boost performance by 5%, and that's worth it. And that could be a huge, difference maker in a campaign. Having access to that insight has always been there, but it would have taken one or two people within Kargo to find those insights, pull them together, come up with it, give it back to the client, make sure that they understand it. Now, within Kara, which could also be self-serve, you could have a human designer at Kargo build you amazing assets, and then you could use Project Kara to create iterations of it. Like I said earlier, it's expanding access and making it easier for everyone to kind of get the best of Kargo, which is still human powered and insights driven and 22 years of learnings, but now available to anyone in a way that's easy for the most entry level traders to figure out. So that's what's exciting to me, is we know what we have, and we know that we have 22 years of experience that others might not. Now anybody can get access to it in a much, much easier way.
I am so excited about this era that we're living in. I think for 35 plus years of working in media, it's finally come to the opportunity where things can actually happen without a lot of technology costs and everything else getting in the way. It's really, it's now available and accessible to everybody. I love it. It's fantastic. So very cool.
Yeah.
Nicely. It's good to see you guys are on the leading foot as well. Joe and Cam from Kargo, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Your perspectives around premium media, advertising creative and attention measurement. Oh, obviously the future of advertising in ChatGPT and OpenAI is amazing. So yeah, I look forward to, as I said before, getting you back on the show to talk to us about that. And I just want to say to everybody else watching and listening to us, both here in Australia and across the globe, thank you very much for your company as well. We look forward to seeing you here next time on Media Tech Talk.
Hi, I'm Adele Visa, Senior Regional Managing Director of APAC at Index Exchange. Join me next on Media Tech Talk as we explore how programmatic advertising has evolved from the early days of real-time bidding to today's world of artificial intelligence, streaming television, and curated marketplaces. We'll discuss how publishers can thrive in an increasingly complex media landscape, why transparency matters more than ever, and where the future of digital advertising is headed. So, here's the question. As artificial intelligence and curated marketplaces transform the advertising ecosystem, what does the next generation of supply path optimization look like? Join me in the conversation that's inspiring media minds. That's next on Media Tech Talk.